Well, hello again everybody. Now, I'm really enjoying riding around on my Mutt Mastiff 125cc motorbike. But since the clocks went back, I haven't been riding it to work and back. You might be able to guess the reason why. Yes, it's the headlamp. And I find that the headlamp is really not very bright at all. I've had better lights on the front of my bicycles. And although I'm new to motorcycling, I haven't picked up much idea about things yet, it does seem to me like it's a good idea to be able to see the road ahead of you. It doesn't seem very conducive to safety if you can't. Now, I raised this matter on some of the Mutt Facebook groups, and they recommended me an LED insert to add to the bike. And yeah, there it is. I'll put a link to it in the description below, the one that I bought. I think there probably are several alternatives available as well. Now remember, I am not a trained or qualified motorcycle mechanic, and these are not intended as instructional videos. If you have any doubts about working on your own motorcycle, you should definitely take it to a proper motorcycle mechanic. Now before I start, I'm just going to start up the bike and shine the light onto a board. I'm going to use that board there that I usually use for crawling under the cars. And provided I keep the bike in the same place, that should give me an idea if the beam needs adjusting up or down once I've finished, because this is how the garage had it set before. So I'm holding the bike upright, and you can see sort of the top of the beam is more or less level with the top of that largest pink splodge. So yeah, I think that'll do us for a sort of a quick check. Now the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the battery, and that lives behind this plastic cover which just pops off at the top and then lifts up. And I'm going to disconnect the negative lead on the battery so that there's no current potentially flowing through any of the bike's systems. Now I think the first thing to do is to remove this grille, which also will remove the housing from the bike. I think there's some rubber washers in there somewhere. I'm not entirely sure. I've read something online about rubber washers, so we'll take that off and see. 12mm socket. Rubber washers between the grille and the headlight bucket. Now I do believe those little screws should enable us to undo the bezel once they're removed. Right, now basically this should now come out, but it is very tight. So, oh dear, yeah, it's extremely tight. There's nothing else holding it, so yeah, this is a tricky bit. So to make that a bit easier, I'm going to put the headlight securing bolts back in, and then I can get a proper grip on that bezel to try and pull it forward to separate it off. Right, now I'm going to simply unplug that headlight bulb and the side light bulb so I can take the whole front of the headlight off and work on it on the bench. Right, so now basically I've got to get this whole shenanigan off by releasing these clips, which I just sort of sprung in to the back end of the bezel. That might be a bit of a game, but we'll see how we get on. Now in theory, this should just drop in here, but in practice, it's just a little too tight. The bezel won't quite go over the glass. So using a mole grip and a wash lever to protect the jaws, I'm just going to go around and see if I can sort of bend it in just very, very slightly. Yeah, and now that fits rather nicely. In fact, I'd go as far as to say perfectly. That's a good bit of backyard engineering for you. Now, I've got to get those clips back on. Wow, that was properly hard work, but you can see I did get it in there in the end. The clips aren't exactly evenly spaced, unfortunately, but I'm not going to fight that anymore. That ain't going anywhere. Now you can see our main plug is easy enough. We got that matched up on the new light. Side light, however, has a live and an earth to it, whereas our new one just seems to have a live. This is where it gets a little bit scary and irreversible. We're going to have to cut that little bulb holder off. Right, let's plug that headlight in, briefly reconnect the battery and just check that that all works. Well, that all seems to work. Side light, dipped beam and main beam all working as expected. Now, got to get that in there. And there's a lot going on here, a lot of connections and things to fit in behind that LED module, so there'll be a bit of creative stuffing has to go on, I think, to get that back in there. Yeah, that was not easy, but now that's done, let's get the headlight and the basket back mounted, and then we can try and make sure it's lined up roughly where it was before. Right, let's check that beam lines up roughly the same place. Yes, I think you can see the spot is pretty much on the top of that pink bit. I think we're more or less there or thereabouts, I think. there we go. I am pretty pleased with that, and I'm looking forward to trying it out in the dark, maybe on my regular commute to work. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Give the like button a press. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see some more.